Welcome to another day in the Matrix. This is Red Pill Podcast 149. Hope you're all having an amazing weekend out there. We have a lot to cover in today's podcast, so let's jump straight into it. But before we get going, make sure to get relaxed and comfortable. Go ahead, grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea if it's the morning time, or a glass of wine or beer or any beverage of your choice. And if you are new here to the Wolfpack, welcome. So great to have you here with us. And if you haven't gotten access to our Discord server yet, just go ahead and send me a direct message here on Patreon with your Discord username, and I will reply back to you in a Patreon message with the Discord server invite. Please do not comment below in this post with your Discord details. I won't be able to help you that way. Do not email me. I won't be able to help you that way either. Just follow those instructions I just shared, and we'll get you in as soon as possible. And doing incredible with our altcoin voting system. We have a lot to cover today. We're actually going to be going over Shiba Inu, Velo, Litecoin, Constellation, DAG, as well as Casper. Just a quick recap and some words of wisdom that are needed. So we'll be finishing off our episode with that. And a quick update. The Year of the Dragon Decoded was released a couple days ago. I hope you all got around to watching that. And if not, definitely check that out, as it'll be the decode I use as the foundation for all of the future decodes that I release this year. Just like I did with my Year of the Rabbit Decoded in 2023 for the Jubilee year. Also, another big update, something that's been in the works for a year and a half now. Tomorrow I'll be launching the pre-sale and early access to my new Decoding Mastermind course. And since the pre-sale launch is available for Patreon supporters, such as you, that means tomorrow I'll be posting an exclusive promo code here on Patreon, which will be your current Patreon member discount of 20% off all of my courses, plus an additional discount on top of that for being the first group to sign up to this new mastermind. And like with all other courses that I've released, it's just a one-time payment for lifetime access. So by getting in this week, you'll be locked in with the lowest price as well as early access to the course materials. And tomorrow I'll also be sharing a sample preview video for this new Decoding Mastermind. So shout out to Matt Ball, who collaborated with me on creating this sample video, taking my vision and bringing it to life. Another fellow wolf who's very creative, and it's amazing that we got this prepared and it'll just bring it to the next level. I'm really excited to start doing more of these creative projects. So keep an eye out for that update tomorrow of the new Decoding Mastermind sample video for the pre-sale launch. And for anyone who invests in themselves by investing in my art, I appreciate you, and I'm grateful for all of your support. It really means the world to me, truly. I poured my heart and soul into this new course, and I designed it in the way that I would have liked to be taught how to decode. And I put a lot of emphasis on simplicity and the basics so that it could be for all levels, even if you're a complete beginner. But I even kept in mind the advanced decoders out there that want something new, something that feels inspiring, something that makes the process of decoding more creative and less by the books, for those true wolves out there. So I'm really excited to finally release this project, and just want you to know how grateful I am for all of your support, and more importantly, how grateful I am to be a part of your journey. Now, let's get into today's Red Pill Podcast 149. Can you believe it? We're almost at 150. Unbelievable. It's so great to have you here with us. We will be kicking things off with a quick decode. And we are all well aware that Chinese Lunar New Year will be next weekend on Saturn's Day, February 10th. So I'll actually be doing a live stream on that day. And then the following day, I'll be releasing the next Red Pill, 150. And this date of February 10th, the Year of the Dragon, it will be connecting to our upcoming solar eclipse on April 8th by 59 days. And this is really powerful because we're in the Year of the Dragon, and you could see dragon equals 59 in Gematria. And as I brought up at the very beginning of that Year of the Dragon Decoded, the mythology of the dragon is tied to the eclipse. They believe that when there was an eclipse, that the so-called invisible dragon swallowed the sun. And here we have dragon in gematria giving you 59. And as I brought up, we have this Chinese New Year landing on 59 days leading into the next solar eclipse. How perfectly synchronized is that? So definitely keep the number 59 in mind this year. And esoterically, we'd want to keep in mind the fact that 59 is a prime number. It's the 17th prime number, to be exact. And you could see this 59. I'm just going to show you. We have the 17th prime. And this ties us into the word Draco. And you could see right here in Chaldean, we have 17. This is the Latin word for dragon, Draco. And Satoshi Nakamoto's mythological birthday this year also lands on a 17 date numerology, I believe, and that is correct. So we have April 5th. Again, this is a mythological birthday, but it's important to keep in mind because we've been keeping up with the code of Satoshi and the birthday since the beginning of my channel, and it's been unbelievable how synced in this birthday is, not only to big moves in the market but also the price of Bitcoin. So we've talked about that enough in the past, but I just wanted to talk about how this number 17 is coded in to dragon being 59. That's your 17th prime. Draco is 17. That's your Latin word for dragon. And then we have the next birthday of Satoshi Nakamoto, which is going to be the 49th birthday. That's very powerful because 49 is like the super Shemitah number. It's the 7 sevens, 7 cycles of 7. And we can see that this being on a 17 date numerology is really important because 17 is the 7th prime number. So lots of 7s for Satoshi, and we've talked about this many times, how there's power to this jubilee of 49 being 7 cycles of 7, and then on the 50th year you practice jubilee. That tells me that the year of 2024 and most of 2025 is going to be very special for Bitcoin. And if it's special for Bitcoin, that means it's special for the entire cryptocurrency market. So we just got started with the Year of the Dragon, but it already excites me to decode the Year of the Snake because I see Q1 of the Year of the Snake being very important in price action overall for the entire market. But getting back to this code, again, if some of this stuff is brand new to you, please watch the Year of the Dragon Decoded. I went at a much slower pace and I broke things down a little bit more, I guess, piece by piece, and it's a lot more visual, and it'll be much more helpful for those, especially those that are newer to my work. So definitely check that out, and it'll make more sense what I'm going over right now. But I just wanted to recap this, and I wanted to share some of my thoughts specifically to the timeline that we're in right now. Okay, let's get back on track. We had Satoshi's birthday giving you the 17. We had Draco giving you the 17. Again, I think this early April timeframe and also the whole month of April is going to be incredibly important for these markets, not just for crypto, but also the stock market, because I showed you how in the Year of the Dragon, we initially top out in the stock market April. Every time. It's either very late March or it's in the month of April. And then after that, we get a pullback and then a lull into as late as July in some cases. And this aligns perfectly with the analysis that I've shared before about a correction for Bitcoin in February, and then kind of holding sideways generally throughout this next eclipse, which is April 8th, just 3 days after Satoshi's birthday, and then how eclipses kind of give us a shock of energy. They disrupt the typical lunar cycles that we have, where we're bullish around new moons and bearish around full moons. There's a little bit of a disruption in the force, and look at it like a ripple effect where the actual solar eclipse date is where the droplet is hitting the water, and then it just circles out, it ripples outward. So I do feel that these 2 months before and the 2 months after are equally as important in regards to what we're doing here when we decode the eclipses and how they're going to affect the price action of the markets. So the 2 months before is the month we're in now. That's why I think February is so crucial, specifically for crypto, and it's why we don't want to overlook these things. And it's what makes this channel here special, because we're looking into the esoteric whilst most are just keeping up with the exoteric. So we have this 41 coming up that I think is important with the word Draco. You can see Draco giving you 41 in English ordinal, and February 10th, the day of Chinese New Year, is the 41st day of the year. Again, how incredibly synchronized is that? And one thing I want to mention that's a little bit more esoteric could be, but also very revealing, of an potentially important upcoming date would be tied to this number 41 and the fact that the number 41 is the 13th prime number, but hang out with me here. So let's plug in the upcoming March lunar eclipse, which is March 24th. And we're going to be tying the 24th to this date of February 13th. Again, we're using the word Draco with the 41 to reveal to us some code. And we're taking the upcoming lunar eclipse and going 41 days backwards. This brings you to February 13th. And I think that this could be crucial because, again, we have 41 being your 13th prime number. And we're talking about the 13th day of this month of February, which is truly kind of the end of the year. I know that we are all taught December is the end of the year, but that's not accurate at all. It would be February moving into the time frame of Pisces. That's a separate story, but again, I do have that Decoding Mastermind coming out soon, and it's going to explore all of those themes of our discombobulated calendrical system. It'll allow you to finally make sense of it all. But getting back on track here, we also have this number 41, and we want to mirror the 41, and that gives us 14. And you can see that February 13th, this date that we discovered, is a 14 date numerology. So 41 days apart from the upcoming lunar eclipse. Now, I want you to look at this date of February 13th, and we see how it's the 44th day of the year. Esoterically, that 44 becomes 2 4s, or 24. And that's the key number for our Year of the Dragon decode. Remember, we're in the year of 2024, and we're also in the Hebrew year of 5,784. That adds up to 24. We have the Jupiter symbol as the 24 being used in the upcoming Summer Olympics. And then we have this number 44 tied to Elon Musk because he acquired Twitter for $44 billion before turning it into X. X is the 24th letter in the alphabet. And the Gregorian system, we have February 13th giving you the 44th day of the year. Right at the start, essentially, of this Year of the Dragon. The year I'm calling the Year of the X. And perfectly connected to this upcoming lunar eclipse, which is on the 24th, the 2-4, and March would be your true first month in the system, not the third. It would be your true first month in the system, making it, if you wanted to start on March 1st, which I wouldn't, but I'm just kind of sharing some thoughts here, we have this 24 incredibly coded into all of this. All right. So I don't want to get too complicated right now, but when we're using eclipses, we always want to see where our code within the Chinese New Year is synchronized into all of this. And I think this is very revealing. Another thing to mention is this fact that this will be the 322 days left in the year. And that's a huge number that we've talked about a lot of times in this channel. We'll cover that in a moment, but to go even deeper into this date of February 13th, we could connect it to last year's Rosh Hashanah, which was on September 16th of 2023. And that's important because these are the last days of Jubilee. And just right after Jubilee, we had Israel declare war. So the war narrative keeps going, and it's going in pulses. It's kind of what I meant to say earlier about how eclipses work. Eclipses are like pulses of energy. It's not the day of them as much as it is the surrounding events. And, we've refined our system more and more over the years, and we've gotten really dialed into what to anticipate. That's how we were able to anticipate a ritual regarding the Titanic last year on the anniversary of the Titanic sinking. And we had it being the 322 year, or the 223 year skull and bones number. And we had the Titan submersible ritual, this Ocean Gate ritual, perfectly aligned. And remember, the sinking of the Titanic was on April 15th of 1912, which led to the implementation of the Federal Reserve System. In the same year last year, we had the launch of FedNow service. This is all just repeating itself over and over again. The cycles repeat. Now we see, since the beginning of the year, all these new nations joined BRICS. I mean, I could decode so many things out of this, but I find it very fascinating how we were able to see it for what it is with regards to the eclipses and how powerful those eclipses are. But I want to talk about this 151 days apart. This is your 36th prime number. So we have 36 is esoterically 3 sixes, or 666. And 666 adds up to 18, which is one of the most important numbers in Judaism. And it's actually one of the most important numbers in cryptocurrency, because we have Bitcoin giving you 36. We also have Ethereum giving you 36 by the code. The top two cryptocurrencies, which combine together for over $1 trillion of the market cap in this entire space. And whenever we bring up a number, we always want to mirror it. So the 36 that we're talking about becomes 63. And if we take from February 13th and we move forward 63 days, you're going to see where this lands us. How perfect is that? The anniversary of the Titanic sinking that I just brought up. But this is the exact date that I've decoded to be a big ritual date on the world stage, April 15th of 2024. I've been talking about it for over 2 years now, pretty much. And not only is it 63 days apart, but April 15th lands on the 63 double-digit date numerology. Again, you can't make this up. Unbelievable. Now also, we were talking about the number 59 because of the dragon. And you can see right here in the double-digit date numerology for February 13th, it's 59, perfectly coded with the dragon year. So I think this 3663 thing is important to keep in mind, especially when you see this connection to this particular date that we've been talking about for the longest time now. Let me check in on something really quickly. It's moon. So I know that this Monday is what reveals all. The fact that April 15th, whenever we have a ritual on that date, it's because it lands on a Monday. And the years where we have the April 15th not land on a Monday, for whatever reason, we don't get rituals that year. But if it lands on a Monday, that was what I decoded and figured out. And it's pretty amazing how it's landing on a Monday this year, in this leap year, an election year, a very tumultuous year with what's going on with the war narrative, all these talks of CBDCs. We also have, so much division from a political perspective. Mainstream media is kind of falling apart. We see everyone now going to alternative platforms for news. It's clown world 3.0. Let's get back on track here. But I really think the 63 connection is very important. And although what I'm about to share isn't necessarily the most important, I do find the code very interesting regarding the day after the 13th, which would be exoterically called Valentine's Day. Now, I'll show you really quickly in the code. We have Valentine's Day, and this has some of the key numbers that we've been talking about. We have this 44. Remember, I was saying how this date of the 13th is the 44th day. Again, I know it's not the same day as Valentine's Day, but it's the day leading into it. That's how energy works. We have that 44 being 2 4s, and we also had this 151, the 36th prime number, and how this date is 151 days from last Hebrew New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and the end of the Jubilee. Valentine's Day, another scam. This all comes back to Eros, which is at the beginning of the origin creation story in Greek mythology. I go into that a lot also in my Decoding Mastermind course, but this makes me think that there could very well be a Valentine's Day ritual this year, something that perhaps happens the day before on February 13th to disrupt the frequency, to disrupt the force, distract people, create a disturbance in communication, etc. And it makes me think, especially because February 13th is landing on a Tuesday. Tuesday is Martes, the day of Mars, god of war. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that day, especially since it's in the 7th week of the year. And remember how Dragon gives you 59? And this will be the first 59 date numerology we have into the date of the year of the Dragon. And 59 is the 17th prime, and 17 is the 7th prime. And this day is in the 7th week of the year. Also, 59 can be reduced. 5 plus 9 becomes 14, and 14 is 2 sevens. 7 and 7 is 14. And this is a 14 date numerology. I mean, it's so synced. It's unbelievable. And we were talking about how it's the day leaving 322 days left in the year, and how that is your skull and bones number. 3 plus 2 plus 2 equals 7. Again, skull and bones is a symbol of death. It's a symbol of the Grim Reaper. It's a symbol of Saturn, Father Time. This skull and bones is essentially a symbolic of death as a physical phenomenon. Whenever you look at a skull, you know it symbolizes death. Okay, so with that date happening after the new moon, it could very well be an important time frame for the crypto market, since we tend to move down in price as we trade into a full moon. And if you remember from the earlier decodes I shared, preparing everyone for early January, and how there was this pattern between January 6th through January 8th where Bitcoin would make its highs for the month, and in some instances it wouldn't go any higher until potentially June or July later that year. Well, I also brought up a couple scenarios where Bitcoin actually did trade higher past the January 8th date, and although it was very rare, there was one very important time that this happened, and it was in February 2020, right before the C19 crash. So let me go back to that. But also, just to recap, if you're brand new here, we talked about this warning of January 8th and how we tend to get our highest daily close on January 8th and do not close a higher daily for the whole month of January, most of the time, not even in the month of February. In some instances, at the very start of a bull run, we would go higher into March and April, but even then, January in the early time frame played a significant role in the price action month by month for the remainder of that year. And it was like 13 cycles total that we covered. I believe it was 75% of the time we topped out by January 8th, no later, and this year we did the same. And I put my money where my mouth is, and I decided to de-risk my Bitcoin at 47K on that exact date. And since it's probably been one of the most accurate and spot on plays that I've made with my own money, and I've been public about talking about. And I'm not taking credit for this. This is just something where I cleared my mind, I put my emotions on the sidelines, and I trusted in my decoding system. I didn't let other people's opinions get in the way, and that's what I'm teaching you guys. Not even to let my opinions get in the way. I'm sharing the skill, and you could take this skill and now utilize it for yourself and for the things you're interested in, you know? As I need to cover the main projects in this market to give a general overview, and I couldn't possibly cover every single altcoin. There's probably, let me check in right now, see how many there are. There's 12,000 of them. I've taught a system, whether it be for TA or decoding, that you could utilize on your own, and that you can decide to take what these numbers are and how they're represented in the symbolism and apply it to what interests you. I mean, look at what's going on here. Decimated token, white rhinoceros, shit coins, man. Unbelievable. We need all that stuff wiped away if we really want the space to mature, but I digress. So just wanted to touch base with this February timeframe that we were just going on about. And look at that. The highest we traded into before we had this crash is February 13th. It's the date that we were pointing out. So, I mean, what's crazy is that this is going to be the 4th anniversary of that upcoming date. And February 13th is the 44th day of the year. So this is your 444 code revealing itself. Remember Jay-Z's last album? Go check that out. The album cover, if you know what I'm saying. If you know, you know. So February 13th, it's pretty fascinating how this was one of the few iterations where we went higher than a January 8th close. We just kept going. And we topped out on the 13th of February before one of the most historic market crashes of all time. Now, when we revisit February 13th last year, let's quickly check in on that. We have this day right there. So it was effectively the lowest Bitcoin traded before another bull trap, which led to a liquidation ritual on March 10th, the day Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, and it was a major retail banking crisis. Note, last year, February 13th was around a full moon. I'm going to show you this really quickly. I'm going to turn off all this noise so you can see what I'm saying. So this was February 13th. It was around this full moon. And then you can see how we traded up into the next new moon. So you can see the importance of these lunar cycles and how clear these pivot points are. Because after that new moon, we dumped perfectly into that March full moon and then continued up into the next new moon. It's just what this market, it's just what Bitcoin does. So that was 2 out of 3 iterations where Bitcoin moved up past January 8th to make a higher daily close. But you can see in both iterations, they were both a bull trap. Because even though we went slightly higher, it doesn't matter. It's still in a range, and then it broke down to the downside for this bear trap. Now, I see something like this coming soon. Not like the end of a bull run, but a bear trap. Something to trap people in despair, you know, because we just had these ETFs launch. These institutional players are buying in the background, but they're not buying the way they're not buying the way you would buy. They're buying OTC with a trading bot, most likely, and just gobbling up small amounts of Bitcoin with tons of trades. This is the same thing that happened back in 2021 with Tesla. Tesla finally had to reveal their Bitcoin position, and they even revealed the way they were doing it. They have to, as a publicly traded company, for it to be a legal move. So that's the same thing that all these new institutions that just got approved for this ETF are doing. And then they're using retail money, speculating on the ETF to just play around with it. You know, like it's actually quite hilarious how much of a scam that all was. But anyone who was paying attention to what we were talking about here, you were prepared for that. You were prepared for what was exoteric to be a distraction for a rug pull. So I can see there being another flush out coming soon. I've been adamant about that, but let's get back on track. Now, the last iteration to discuss would be this time frame over here of February 2022. So we went over 2023 last year. We went over 2020. Now we're going over 2022. And you could see we moved up into February 10th before about a 25% correction from the peak. And during this time, Bitcoin was ranging before taking another leg lower. Okay? So it's important to note that Bitcoin's actually currently trading in the same area, and we're very low volatility, chopping around, and this is kind of just a sign of weakness in general. But I think it's pretty fascinating that we're trading here around the same prices that we were back in February 2022. All 3 of these scenarios have something in common. They're all bull traps. Now, of course, this time can be different, but I've shown you how since the beginning of Bitcoin, we tend to close all following solar eclipses on a higher weekly close than on the one prior. So let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. But essentially, if we're going to get a deeper correction soon, it's likely to be sooner than April 8th. It's likely to happen sooner than later. Let me show you the eclipses. So the last one was over here on October 14th, 2023. Bitcoin closed that week off at 27K. So it would be likely that we closed the April 8th week higher, not lower than 27K. What's interesting is if we were to pull from this yearly high down to about 27K, it's going to be a 44% correction. And we were just talking about the significance of this number 44. I think the number 44 is heavily coded into this year based on how everything I shared about earlier, this being the year of the X being the 24th letter in the alphabet, that's 2 4s, esoterically 2 4s, tying in Elon, etc. Well, if I take from the first day that Bitcoin if I take from the day that Bitcoin first hit 44K, which was on December 5th, and I move it over 44 days, you're going to see it was actually the day that we broke this critical support level that we were holding. And since we broke that critical support level, we've traded back into it, and now we're essentially confirming it as a new resistance. And by the way, this trend line that we're talking about has been in play for 100 days, so over 3 months now. So it's becoming noticeably important from a technical perspective that we were holding this trend line with very low volatility, spiked up, and then once we broke below it, we're starting to get resistance on it. That's a sign of weakness. Again, we have multiple signs of weakness here, even after the ETFs are approved. Also, consider that 44 days after the current yearly high would be revealing another potential date that we've been talking about, but just from another angle. And that would be February 24th. Again, 24, 2 4s. And that is also the day of the next full moon. It'll be a full moon in Virgo using lunar astrology. And Virgo is the Virgin. So perhaps a purification ritual is the symbolism I'm picking up on here. A purification before eclipse season. And again, the eclipse season starts in late March into early April. So for me, I'm still looking to have the ideal buying opportunity for Bitcoin to be within this month, with emphasis on the full moon of this month around February 24th, and during the month of March, tied into this lunar eclipse before the solar eclipse. As I said, it would be likely that we close off the week of April 8th through 14th higher than 27,000, and likely higher than 30K as well. And of course, we'll continue to monitor this week by week, and I'll share additional updates if needed. But we all know that these downside moves will take a big beating on the altcoins, and this is good news because it'll be an incredible opportunity for the wolves to take advantage of. And that's something that I'm going to be definitely taking advantage of because I've been prepared for it for a long time now. And I told everyone publicly why I was de-risking my Bitcoin at 47K and why I was de-risking my Ethereum around 2,400. And I'm just looking to buy back more because I think this bull run just got started. So now's the perfect time to get over into the charts and actually do some traditional technical analysis to review what's been going on in this market since the monthly close. And that's actually where I would like to start. Let's do a quick recap of this monthly. I believe I touched on it in my last YouTube video, but just to share, this is a very precarious doji candle, and although dojis do have a bias in the color that they finish off on, either bullish or bearish depending on if it's green or red, this would be a more quote-unquote bullish doji, but I don't feel bullish because we've had a straight year of uptrend, and it's time for either a chill moment or a bigger pullback, or a combination of both. I think it's going to be a combination of both. And you could see here that if we were to take the full range of this from high, even to this extreme low, it's only been a 20% correction in general. I think if you were to go to a daily chart, you're going to see multiple 20% corrections, but that's there's always a moment where we top out like in the middle of the cycle and have a little chill before going another leg higher. It would not make sense for us to just rage to the upside candle month after month right now. Another good example would be here, and I know it doesn't seem like it, but look, we topped out and then we had about 120 days of sideways before we went on to break the all-time high. Here, it's the same thing. Look, we stopped out right here and we had about, look at that, 120 or so days before we continued to make another leg higher. Here, it was very arduous and horrible because we had this black swan in the middle. A great buying opportunity, but most were not prepared for that. But if we were to consider stalling out right here as our top and going over 120 days, you see where that brings us. May. So that after May timeframe into June, we could very well be recovering out and then making a new cycle high. But between now and then, it would make most sense for us to just chill, reset this RSI, and then keep the show moving into late 2024. Now, again, the market doesn't need to do what we want it to do, but we have historical data in the charts that proves that this is about the stage where we pause, chill out, build some market structure, and then continue on. And after this, and I'm going to bring this up and I hope you guys see where I'm coming from. After everyone getting sucked into the market leading into this Bitcoin ETF approval distraction, and now that we're down more since the ETFs are approved, I think it's proof that they needed something exoteric to just get liquidity trapped in before a pre-planned sideways market. I mean, this is what the market maker does best. Why? Because the market maker doesn't give a shit about ETFs or white papers or any of that mess. They don't care about the dev team or who's making changes to upcoming updates. It's irrelevant. The market maker follows astrology, numerology, and gematria. They're always basing their life around the esoteric. It's the exoteric that they give us to distract us and have us fall for traps. Remember that. So this ETF thing is proof. And the volume right now is so low, and it doesn't make any sense to the average market participant, but it should make a lot of sense to you. We have a declination of volume since this event. I mean, what more do I have to say? Another thing we had was this technical level of the 0.5 fib. Stopping out there could very well be a play into what's called a traditional dead cat bounce. So you'd have a rejection at the 0.5 fib, and then you roll over, and then any daily closes that are lower than the current structural closure low, that's when you would anticipate us going even deeper to the downside. And the way that we could figure out that level is we're just going to pull a fib in reverse. So we're going to pull a fib from the swing low to the swing high, and you see where this puts our 1618 is right there at 332. It's in the middle of this range. That makes the most sense too, because if I was to show you where the macro fib levels are, if I zoom out, look at where 32 and 33K is. It's the 0.5 fib in the macro. It's a textbook play. Look, so we have this all-time fib right now from our current all-time high, down to our swing low of the cycle. The 0.5 fib sits there at right below 33K. Now let's go to the first cycle actually, so I could just show you what the hell I'm talking about. So we stop out in the golden pocket, we retest the 0.5 fib. Here, we get stopped out in the golden pocket, retest the 0.5 fib. And this only happened in a single week, so very elusive. It's a shakeout. Over here, this got bad because we back tested the 0.5 fib and we just snaked around it until a deeper correction. But look, after we recovered from all of this and got back above the 0.5 fib into the golden pocket again, just continued the show. So this was all opportunity anyways. Who even cares? You know? So this is a big point, that when we get into the golden pocket for the first time, it is normal for us to at least backtest the 0.5 fib. At least. It hasn't not happened. Every cycle where we first get into the golden pocket, we backtest the 0.5 fib. First get into the golden pocket, backtest the 0.5 fib. First get into the golden pocket, backtest the 0.5 fib, needed to build market structure. Then once we broke out of the golden pocket, we kept it moving. Here, this is our first time entering the golden pocket. I don't think it's going to be any different. I do think we're setting up to retest the 0.5 fib. which is around 32 to 33K Bitcoin. And with this bearish fib pull that I just showed you, it's perfectly at that level. Now, another thing to consider is this is where we initially jumped into in the range to head on to the what I'm calling the finality of the automatic rally. So you can see how after we got above 33K, we were choppy for a while. We were choppy for about 40 days before we effectively broke out. And now we're seeing resistance on the prior levels that we were holding as support back then. So a retest of this level is sensible. It makes a ton of sense to me. It's upcoming, most likely before April would make. And here's another thing that I want to share, and then we'll move on from this. It doesn't matter if it happens at the end of this month or in mid-March, or if it happens in April or May. It's just about knowing that these charts are telling a story, and we need to listen to that story. We can't get impatient here. Be patient about this, and you'll see that, yeah, we've been pretty damn good at marking these pivot points with a high level of accuracy, but we're still open-minded to the fact that we could be slightly off. But being off and it's still going in this, being off in time, but still it achieving the same price that we were anticipating is not being wrong. And that's huge, right? Because it won't make us any better at investing or make us any extra money if it's to happen on a specific date, unless you're playing with options or some other shit like that. But that again is not a majority of the market participants. A lot of people are trying to have a replacement for things like 401ks and retirement plans and just like really slow moving stocks. And this is the alternative for a lot of people. And we're aware of that. You're getting in on a nascent asset class ahead of time. You're getting in on it before it's regulated. This is where the most ROI potential is. You know, like I'm aware Meta stock just has gone up like 400% over the past year, but cryptos do that in a couple months in a lot of situations. So there's nothing wrong with the meta play if that was something you did TA on and you caught it early. But my big point is that it doesn't matter when the time happens exactly. Just being prepared and getting out in advance or getting in early is what matters most. So for me, selling at 47 a couple of days before the exact top, it doesn't matter. We've been planning on this move for 6 months. If XRP goes to $1 in March, who cares if it didn't go to it in January? It's irrelevant. And I think the only people that get frustrated about this are people who are new to the game. You know, you got to learn the rules of the game, and you got to build some scar tissue playing the game in order to really master it. And that's what a true investor is. Everyone else is just trading and hoping for the best, throwing Hail Mary passes, and 95% of the time, the wide receiver never catches it. So you have to be patient, you know. Let's move on. We went over the monthly candle. It's not looking the best, but generally still looking pretty damn good. I mean, if we were to bring up some of the moving averages, there's nothing really negative to say about this. I'm going to turn off the volume, turn off the moon phases. And let's take it step by step. We have the 55 and the 8 in a bullish posture, both sloping to the upside. That's very bullish. And then we have all of our moving averages. All of our key EMAs are moving to the upside, all in a bullish posture. Nothing negative to say about this. Let's look at the bi-weekly. Bullish because we had our wolf cross of the 8 above the 55, and we have this perfect splay or this fanning out effect of our key moving averages as we move up, and we backtested the 2-week 8 simple moving average. Any closures below that I do think would lead to a dump. So we want to keep that in mind, this 8 simple moving average on the bi-weekly. And perfect next close will be next weekend, and it'll be opening up into that week of the 13th of February that I brought up. So yeah, that would make a lot of sense if we were to flash down and consider where the 34 EMA is right now. It's sitting right there slightly below 33K. So that's in our target area. I'm not entirely convinced that we're going to go as deep as sub 30K level, but hey, if it happens, it happens. It'll be fast though. That's really the thing. You can see even here on all of the tails of these candles, they were bought up pretty quickly within the week. So it was choppy to the downside, but effectively these or a total of almost 5% on a lot of them. So between this move at 30 and 5% is bringing you right around to like 28K. I mean, we're splitting hairs here. You know what I mean? Okay, so let's look at the weekly. The weekly is starting to show weakness, all right, because we closed below the 8. The 8 is starting to slope to the downside. We did get bought back above it so far this week, and we have a weekly closure coming in tonight, so that's kind of positive, but that's a sign of weakness to me, and that's a sign that coming back to the 34 on the weekly is most likely next in order, and then the bi-weekly 34, as I shared moments ago. When's the next 5-day closure? Next 5-day closure is today. All right. And we've already tested on the 21 several times, again, showing signs of weakness, and anything below the 21 on the 5-day chart, that's a signal of a deeper correction. And we have this 55 perfectly aligning with 32 to 33K. And look at how it's been a key support level since the start of our bull run. We knew it was the start of the bull run when we broke out over here above this selling climax zone. And when we back tested this 55 moving average, we then bounced, and then we came back to it one last time and traded outside of it for almost 50 days, for like 2 full months before this next impulse. So coming back to it another time, 3 times a charm, that would make the most sense to me. Now, one thing I want to mention is closing below the 55. Closing a 5-day candle below that level would be precarious for sure. That would be maybe a problem. But I would still take it as an amazing buying opportunity, in my opinion. Especially with these ETFs approved, because they always just want to shock money in, steal you at the top, and then they grab the bag at the bottom, and then they bounce it quick so that their investors don't start panicking. It's a game. Okay, really not much to say about the 2 or 3 day that isn't already said with the 5-day. Now, one thing to mention here. On the daily, all of our moving averages are squeezing together. So we have the 13, 34, 21, 55, and 8. They're all squeezing. We almost are having a wolf cross to the upside, but this is very elusive and not something to trust. We've seen this in the past where we get this short-term wolf cross with upside implied after we have it cross to the downside. It creates this little gap, and that's not convincing. So I would start to look to higher time frames at this point, but I'm just sharing my thoughts. As they squeeze together like this, it's showing that there will be a strong support at whatever area it squeezes together. But that means once we start closing below it, now you have weakness below. So yeah, keep that in mind. We don't really have any key moving averages until the 200s. Let me throw those up. I forgot to. And look at that. So the 200 simple is right there at 34. Even that's getting a little high. So this looks very bullish in the macro sense, but late in the short term, we're stalling. Definitely. Okay. So yeah, we've shared our downside targets on Bitcoin. At this time, I do not anticipate us going higher than 46K. And that comes back to this analysis here of a bull trap. So if we are to get bought up into this upcoming new moon next week, this is my area of the highest I think Bitcoin is going. I do not think we're going to close a daily close higher than 47K, and I don't think we're going to break onto 49 and higher at this time. I think we need to have a little bit of shakeout energy before moving up, and most likely a little bit of boredom, but that's all opportunity, because you always want to buy the boredom, buy the blood in the streets, sell the excitement. Okay, so let's get over to ETH. It's just some quick words because there's not a whole lot to comment on. All right, so I'm going to turn off this, and I see a trend line. Okay, so we had this trend line here that was on the extremes of the data. We broke down below it, and since we've been getting some resistance, so could be something to consider. Not going to put too much weight into a trend line, but I could tell that we're trapped between the 0.5 and the 618 in the macro. What I would like to do at this time is pull a bearish fib from this current low to this swing high. And this brings us to around 1885. Okay, well, that's a majority of this middle trading range. You could see here, we were rejected around that level. And then we had, let me see, 150 days of trading around where this 1618 is putting us before one final dump and then getting above it. So that's a key level. It's kind of like the line in the sand. So I'd suspect if Bitcoin does want to dump down to, let's just say 32 or 31, that this will bring us back into the 382. And that kind of is just a repeat of the last analysis I shared. So yeah, nothing really new to say here. We're just in a range. I don't think we're going to be getting back above this 618 at this time because I believe Bitcoin will steal more dominance. And I'm going to continue to say I don't know where this alt season idea is coming from. People are still kind of like screaming it from the hills. I disagree. No alt season right now. Bitcoin makes a move down, it will bring all of this stuff down more. I know there's some isolated things going on. Like I think Chainlink has been doing okay lately, but this is the same sort of scenario that happened with the Bitcoin chart where we have the start of a crown top distribution and then we have this up thrust after a distribution, and this type of shit is super elusive. It's it's a higher high bull trap, and that shit, like, people start going long at the worst times on this stuff. I'm not bearish on Chainlink, by the way. I think it's a solid project and it's a long-term hold, but I'm just sharing my thoughts. When we have stuff break out of a range, that's where Wyckoff method becomes like your best friend, because a lot of the time these things are just distributions and we have a UTAD, and these UTADs get rejected harsh and we go lower. That's exactly what happened with Bitcoin leading into the ETFs. Look, we had, I shared this with everyone, by the way, but we had this chop UTAD and then broke lower than our prior supports. We come back up for a little bull trap, and then that's really where there's a lights out moment, because it's a distributional pattern, not a reaccumulation. They're very easy to confuse. Also, I teach this in my Crypto Mastermind course and my advanced trading course for those who are interested in learning more about Wyckoff method and how to actually utilize it. Okay, so now we're on XRP. I've shared my thoughts about XRP for an isolated event in the months of March and April, and I will be coming out with, maybe in a couple weeks, maybe before the end of February, I'm going to come out with a video talking about that specifically. But for now, we are just holding, and I know we're not necessarily holding this exact trend line, but we're snaking around this long-term macro trend line that's been in play forever on XRP, forever, like literally since 2014. Yeah, you could see. It was the nail in the coffin of the automatic rally of 2014, and then once we broke above it, it was pretty much send it to heaven. Then at the end of this bull run, return back to it with the C19 crash, start of the Ripple SEC case, bear market, and have been holding it for the whole bear market. Now we're just playing around with it. So keep this in mind. This is a very major trend line. It's been holding since. And it's not weird for us to get below it because it's an altcoin at the end of the day. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's just to give us an idea of where the trend is headed. And so far, this has been higher lows and higher highs, which is bullish. It's the start of a reversal pattern, effectively. And I know this is really draining people's patience right now, but you kind of just got to stick in there with some of this stuff. Okay. Let me just pull a fib right now and see if we've gotten down to our 1618. Okay, perfecto. So you see what I just did? I pulled a fib from this level right here up to this wick to the top in this very micro fractal. And the reason I pulled it from here was because it was the first bounce before here would be a micro automatic rally. But effectively, you could see when we started to break below this level is when we cascaded to the downside. So I really like using the bearish fib pull. I know a lot of people typically do it in the opposite way, the bullish fib pull, but I've been using it in this fashion to determine downside targets. And like you can with the 1618 to the top on a bullish fib pull, this is the way you could use it for the bearish target on the downside. And as you can see, that's perfectly retested. So keep this 48 cent around 49 cents in mind. It seems to be an important level, and that's not just for now. I mean, that's been an important level for a long time on XRP. And what else do we want to, okay, so anything closing lower than 47 cents on a weekly would be bad. Until we close below 47 cents on a weekly, we're just holding a range. And yes, it's still in a range. Until we break $1.70, we're still just chopping in a range, the same range since effectively the SEC case started. But that's something to actually mention. This was when the SEC case started, this big correction, and how we got bought right back up to that level. Now, we broke through that level to go to the yearly high, even at the start of the case, and then we back tested it here before the final bull traps that led to the bear market. We're trading right back at that level, and we know that this SEC case is coming to its conclusion very soon. The grand trial's in April, late April. That's why for me, I feel like it's almost a necessity for me to finalize my accumulations on XRP before the grand trial. And I have this theory that we're going to be bought into it. I believe I've shared that a couple of times now. So we're going to move on. We have this downside target to consider. We had this 1618 bearish fib pull that's perfectly at where our current lows are. If we were to trade there and build some support, that's not out of the ordinary, although this project is lagging behind. And if Bitcoin was to tumble and go down to the 30s, this will definitely bring this project down with it, but that's when we'd want to keep this 382 in mind. And we could just wick down there real fast and be bought right back up, just like I shared with the Bitcoin play. We can see Bitcoin go down to 30 and then bought right back up to 40 in the same week. That's how elusive this moment in the bull run is. I mean, it's a bull run, so you can't expect bearishness to last too long in these markets. And considering Bitcoin was trading at 15K at the end of 2022 and it's trading at 40K today, you can tell that, like, yeah, this is a much different environment than what we were in a bear market. Okay, we're moving on to Shiba Inu. I'm not entirely sure why this was voted on so much, because we're not making any progress here. We haven't even really had an automatic rally, so this will be quick. I don't know if I'm going to accumulate any Shiba. I think Shiba did well in the time that it was going, and there was a lot of speculation behind it, and people were talking about all these updates and, you know, exchanges, and I don't care about any of that stuff. Like, since the end of the bull run, it has been very low volatility for the past 600 or so days in a horizontal range at fractions of a penny. I mean, I know that this had its time to shine and it did amazing when it did, but that happened to so many projects in 2017. Like, if you study the past and you see how many altcoins hit the market in 2016 into 2017 before the first big alt season, dude, it was all like this bullshit. And then a lot of it never even went higher into the next cycle. Like, we're talking about Dash. I believe Monero barely went onto all-time highs. Stellar Lumens. Like, not just XRP. So I don't feel confident that this thing has another cycle in the cards. I mean, maybe it'll make it up to the golden pocket territory in the macro fib at best. I mean, but there's new trendy shit that people are going to move on to, and that's all this was. This was a cultural moment, a trend, all right? And it's fun to play the trend when it's going, but then once it's over, it's over. It's like a one-hit wonder. It's like a single of a song, you know? Like, nobody's playing that Crank That Soulja Boy song anymore. It had its moment. That was Shiba Inu. Shiba Inu was Crank That Soulja Boy. Now it's over. It's bye-bye. And sure, it's still getting royalties. It's still making Soulja Boy some money in the background, but it doesn't have the essence of that time when it came out. You feel me? So, yeah, this is not impressive. I'm not sure. I could try to do some Wyckoff on this, and I'll do my best. I think what we've had is this was the AR and true Wyckoff, okay? This is true Wyckoff. We have buying climax, selling climax. Now, when I say a true Wyckoff, it's because Wyckoff was alive before crypto. He died before we were, like, using computers, okay? So we're talking OG market maker, you know? And buying climax would be obvious here. Selling climax would be obvious here. I do think this would be a classic AR, even if you wanted to consider this a classic AR. And now this would be your spring, and we would be getting out of a test. And if we can break the 382, that would be called your SOS, and then we would have a backup phase. So because we have this range over here of a prior support, this is how I could see this going for Shiba. Maybe we go down a little more with Bitcoin. We get to the, you know, like, let's just say May, June. break into this 0.5 fib and then roll. So I'll show you. Method to my madness. We want to keep this level in mind. This is where I flip from me just talking about my mindset to giving you a TA lesson. So here was your support that you tried to hold before the selling climax. So you want to mark that as a crucial level. Then you have the current resistances that you've been facing that we have yet to face since. So that's an important level. And when it perfectly aligns with your 382, you have to keep that in mind. So what's next after your test range? After your test range would be an SOS. And after your SOS, it's likely to come back test the prior level that you were rejecting on. So if I had to make this very clean, it would look like this. I'm giving you guys a play far in advance. So and then doing good into the new year. But that's about all that I would see it doing. Some sort of play like this. So we have this SOS breakout into this prior support, get rejected, come back test the prior resistance, which was right here, confirm prior resistance as a new support, check, check, and then now you'd confirm bull mode because you'd be breaking this level right here. And then you'd enter your next cycle, but I still think this is just going to be a huge cycle. It would be very, very surprising. The fact that Shiba has been so boring while Bitcoin has been up for month after month for a year now. Let's look at a year ago. This is a year ago, guys. Shiba Inu is up. Oh my God, what a shit coin. Shiba Inu is up 15% basically from a year ago. Bitcoin is up 150%. I'll rest my case. But what are we even... Yeah. Bear markets are really like rough on trendy shit coins. Okay, they're really rough on these types of projects. I mean, it's a distraction of distractions. I know it had its moment, but this chart history and the way it's been behaving since, 15% gains in a year, whilst Bitcoin is up 150%, clear as day. This thing jumped so many ranks in market cap, I knew it was a psyop. I knew it was just big market maker money trying to trap in a bunch of people way too late, and I know some people made it like a bandit with this run, but when it started hosting on all those exchanges all at the same time, it was all around the top. It doesn't even matter that this thing's 90% down. I think what matters most is the fact that it hasn't gained anything in a year, and it's been perpetually sideways now going on 700, 600 days in the same range that it was before the end of the bull run. Crazy. But yeah, that's the play. I don't know if this thing will go much lower though, but given that it's an absolute shit coin, you'd be looking to these prior lows here, or at least some sort of support to kick in right around here. I can't even read this number because there's so many zeros in it. Let's move on to Velo. Oof. Oh my God. Okay, gotta like clear my sinuses for this one. Sorry, I need a sip of water. Wow, this thing is currently trading in hell. Yeah, no fib is going to work on this. Okay. What did it lose? 99.99999% of its value. It lost 99.95% of its value. Very good. Excellent. Excelente. Very good job. All right. I'm not trying to be a dick, but like, fuck, man, this is bad. I didn't create the project, so I shouldn't even, who cares? Yeah, there's nothing on this. This is it's a good example of something that I can't really do TA on, because we're just talking about it's fell off a cliff. It's not had any supports. It's had perpetual lower highs. It looks like it wants to recover here. Like, I'm going to guess this was like a 700% gain. Yeah, look, it was a 1400% gain. That's how much of a shitcoin this thing is. It lost 99.99% of its value, and then it had a 1400% move up back in about a year ago, followed by another 90% correction. My God, dude. Yeah. Okay. What has it done since eclipse season? So it's gone up 100% since eclipse season after being down 99%. All right, I'm going to do everyone a favor and just try my best here so we could get something out of this mess. I'm marking off this level. Clearly, we did test as a support before breaking through it, cascaded down through here before just jumping straight back to this level before rejection. We have another level to consider, which would be at this horizontal range here, 00224. A lot of action there. You can see test, test, another test, and then we held it before a little bit of a bounce, and that bounce was right around the last solar eclipse, so that's definitely important to note. So we're going to zoom in and we're going to try okay, so we've had a 90% correction, I believe, like an 88%. Yeah, look, we had a 90% correction here. So I'm just going to zoom into this little fractal and pay attention here and do my best. We came up into this golden pocket. We got rejected. Now we're coming back down. As I teach, once you get above the 382, that's where you initiate AR. So we would call this a micro selling climax, a micro AR, and it's likely to come back now. To call this the higher or the lower high, excuse me, and then we would have some sort of retest into this zone between the 236 and this yellow line. We could tell that this yellow line is significant because that's the major pivot point and bounce point of a majority of these turnarounds. So coming back down to there would not be weird. And if we were to come back down to there, that would be sort of like a spring vibe. And it could be like this, an inverse head and shoulders move. And then we recover out. That's very common and sort of like some ugly version of what happened already. Now, this is your key level, 0.015. If you can break above that, I believe it's heading to this 1618 fast. And now that is a huge amount. Like even from here, that's a fucking crazy move. It's 1500%, 1200%. So off of this backtest level, there it's 2500. Like that's crazy to be positioned just a little bit. But we're talking about betting on the horse that's lost the most times chart. It's not a solid bet. Yeah. And I mean, is this thing down from a year ago? What the hell? Okay, it's up 40% from a year ago. Bitcoin's up 150% from a year ago. So this thing is doing its own thing in Hades. This is a horrendous chart, by the way. This got so many votes this week, I believe, and I'm curious why. Not that matters. I'm just wondering, like, was there something that some other influencer talked about, or so? Like, what made people curious about this? You just like me roasting charts? What is it? I mean, that's always fun. I'm going to try to keep this trend line in mind too. Let's take this out here, extend it. Where are people buying this thing? I mean, the 2,500% play is what I think a lot of altcoins are going to do in their whole cycle. So if this thing could just be bought back, no, dude. Oh my God, even right here, this level, because you can see that was your attempt at support before the last bull trap, before this thing really started just avalanching to hell. That'd be a 6,000% move back to 28 cents. But yeah, I wouldn't bank on that. It's too little chart history. Maybe there is a longer term chart that you guys have access to that I don't, but yeah. But from a Wyckoff perspective, in the micro, this could retest on this trend line, which would align perfectly with the 236 fib, and I like to see that. Build a little bit, but if it gets below it now, you got to watch out because it could do something like this. We have our inverse head and shoulders kind of vibe come in, as I shared earlier, just at a different scale. But coming below this trend line and getting rejected off of it, that could be the sign to start getting ready for more blood in the streets on this project. And then we're talking, two back-to-back, like 80% corrections. I would anticipate something of the sort coming soon, especially if Bitcoin turns around. Let's go over to Litecoin. Well, we called this Litecoin halving an important point to de-risk, and that's been effectively the truth, because this thing has not been doing well at all since the halving. It's up 17% since around the time. Jeez, this is bad. Okay. This coin is up 12% since the last eclipse. It's made no progress. I don't remember where Bitcoin is at since the eclipse. Yeah, about 60% up. Yeah. So the halving has always been kind of a nail in the coffin for Litecoin. We don't have the chart anymore because whatever the long-term chart was, it got deleted from TradingView, whatever the exchange was. But this is the all-time chart effectively. It's the best we can get, showing the cycle before this past two cycles, so back at the genesis of Litecoin. And you can see just right here that we've been in a big horizontal trading range now that's been building up for going on 2,400 days. So kind of the same situation that XRP is in. And we did not really have much more of an all-time high in the 2021 cycle. It was effectively a double top, which is not good at all. And these are the C19 levels. So to give you some context here, we are only up 80% on Litecoin from the C19 crash. I believe Bitcoin was $3,000 around the time of the C19 crash. It was like 3,800. Today it's 40,000. So it's been up 10x since. So this is really, really lagging behind. Now, the one thing to mention about Litecoin, and it probably became part of the conversation after my last decode, the Year of the Dragon, because this has a lightning bolt in the symbolism, and it's literally called Litecoin. And the lightning bolt, thunder, these are symbols of Jupiter. Now, we're not in the Year of the Dragon just yet. So let's see, the Year of the Dragon could be a play for Litecoin. I just don't know if it would outperform Bitcoin. You know what I mean? So then I don't know if it's really worth it, because Bitcoin is gold color. We have the orange color in the symbolism. I mean, just bet on the winning horse. You know, that's the one that's been up and up and up and up cycle after cycle since the beginning. So you never need to feel like you're betting on the loser. I know people have their own theories, but the charts prove otherwise. And when we have this orange symbolism with Bitcoin, well, why wouldn't you bet on that, right? So we also remember, I was telling you, one of the symbols of Jupiter is the eagle. The eagle is Mercury. Mercury holds the caduceus. That's a symbol. And that symbolism is in the symbolism of Bitcoin. We have this dollar symbolism, the caduceus. And the caduceus also has the serpents, the snakes, the Ida and the Pingala. So serpent, dragon, snake symbolism, etc. So Litecoin might have a really stellar end of this year. But for right now, no. I don't know. We have to see because the symbolism is there. Let me check in on the code real quick, and I'm not going to do a full decode. I just want to check in. 42. Okay. Well, 42 is the mirror of 24. That's the year we're in. That's big. 10. So we're getting some Mars in there too, because Mars is 10. Light coin, obviously spelt not the right way, but that's on purpose. Three nines. It's a little more esoteric, but 3 nines is 27 and 27 is Jupiter. So we got it. Yeah, I mean, I can't decode this right now, but and the chart performance, I don't know if it's enough for me to give my prana to it. I'm actually looking for my next big decode to be the Dogecoin decode. That'll be my next big coin decode, and it'll likely be after I share some more feelings on this March-April timeframe for XRP. But needless to say, let's get back to the TA on this. I mean, it's just chopping in a horizontal range. It's hard to even tell where the Wyckoff is on this. I could say that this was your selling climax before the halving. You had your automatic rally. Now we're coming down into the spring. Let me pull a fib to see where we're at. Oh, damn, we're below the 236. This is super weak, guys. Yeah, so when you spring out, you're going to be coming down as low as these C19 levels. And if this is performing this way while Bitcoin is doing so well, then it's showing you that this could have another 30% to the downside. Oh shit, is that $42? Okay, so that's right around $42. This is right around $42. Yo. And then we had Draco as the 41, right? See, I just did this decode, so now we need to use these numbers moving forward. That's the purpose. That's the purpose of doing all this hard work on the Dragon decode. You got to use the numbers. We got this 41. We had this 41 on the pivot before moving up. Shit. That's pretty big. We could get that. The dragon breathes fire, breathes lightning, thunder. Yeah. That 41, 42 level would make a lot of sense. And now one thing to mention is the true second month would be April. So April 20th or April 2nd. Whoa. Okay. Yeah. I could see that. Yeah, this thing's really lagging behind. But what did it do after the C19 crash? It didn't even go up at 10x. All right, yeah. This is, I don't know if I care enough. I mean, XRP put on 1,000% gains after it crashed after the Ripple SEC lawsuit. And it did just as much as Litecoin without a lawsuit. What? People talk shit about XRP, but I'm like, well, what are we saying? I should maybe bring that up in the next, in another like interview or something to kind of make comparisons, just to point out the fact. But all right, yep. This is not doing so hot. I would look for a break of this 57 level to the downside if Bitcoin rolls over more. And yeah, we'd be looking into the low $40 range for Litecoin. I can't really put too much emphasis on feeling that it'll be bullish this year just because of the symbolism. We also need to take other things into account. We have Constellation DAG. All right, I know we might not have the long-term chart for this, but we do have this around the C19 levels, and look at that. We're up 600 to 700%, so we have some progress, a lot better than the Litecoin chart. An absolutely wild bull run of about 6,700% to the upside from the lows of this horizontal trading range. Came back down to retest this rejection level, this red line, so that's crucial. This is effectively stopping out where you would call your selling climax. That's very good. And getting rejected below the 382 is a huge sign of weakness, but the fact that we're holding on the 236 could be something. Not the most bullish bounce on earth, but good enough. Still, Bitcoin is outperforming this, given year to year. Compared to a year ago to today, I mean. Let's see how much this drop was. Okay, so a 95% correction. This should be done. But damn, this was a really arduous sell-off. It perpetually sold off all the way until like right around our last eclipse season. 766 days. All right. So, I mean, all right, if you break the 382, we know we're going to initiate into the macro AR vibe somewhere around the 618 fib. This could very well go on to a new cycle, though. As opposed to what I said earlier about Shiba Inu, this could very well go on to a new cycle. I don't think it's not as memey and, you know, like not the shitcoin world. I mean, it does have the shitcoin chart, no offense, but I do think there might be a little bit more of a sophisticated buyer here. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to go to heaven. It just means that it could very well break into price discovery. And by the way, we could just have a slight higher high for the next cycle. Like, I don't know if we can keep having these crazy alt seasons forever, like we've had in last cycle, for instance, or in 2017 and early 2018. I just can't keep repeating. Or the one that XRP did, for instance, in 2015. Now, that just can't keep up forever. Something's got to give. And when it gets more regulated and more household, that's what will prevent that type of ROI. I'm not trying to pee on anyone's parade here. I'm just telling you the truth of how it all works. Like, you could look at the volatility of Amazon since the origin of their company going public and kind of tell that there was a lot more volatility leading into the dot-com bubble than there was after the dot-com bubble, all the way until it took the time to recover that. I mean, it took so long to even get back to the prior all-time highs. And then once it broke those highs, it just moseyed on up basically a decade after it took. And it's been a solid play. If you bought in post dot-com bubble, you're a legend. But the point is it takes time. It's not just a 4-year cycle like you get here in crypto world. I think these cycles are going to start showing less ROI the more popular it gets. But yeah, this chart's looking okay, I guess. It's just finally pivoted off of an almost 800-day downtrend, so we can't really get excited just yet, especially with this rejection at the 382. That's not making me jump and click my heels together. So we have our upside target ideas in mind, but we have to keep in mind the fact that Bitcoin could potentially have a deeper correction soon. And if this thing is down 40% off of this recent rejection on Bitcoin, then I would see that full 60% move to the downside around 3 cents is likely. And we could see a little bit of support here, a lot of trading around there, and one final bounce around 3 cents before it moved up and initiated this impulse. So keep that in mind. Around 3 cents would be a good area to consider reaccumulation. Not financial advice. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Casper. All right. So I last covered Casper during Red Pill 145. That was on January 7th, about a month ago from right now. And before that, I covered it in Red Pill 140 on December 3rd. And the purpose for this recap is due to the demand of this getting the most votes almost every week in regards to our altcoin voting system in the comments section below this video. And it's getting the most votes even though I cover it quite often. But after today's Red Pill, I'm going to give this one a break since we typically put a 2 to 3 month gap in between covering the same project again. So we needed to build more data and I'll be able to share new thoughts then. But I wanted to use today's Red Pill as an example, just to share some investing words of wisdom. Now, I shared my truth on this project back in December 3rd on Red Pill Podcast 140. Shortly after that moment, so we're going to go zoom into December 3rd. That was right here. Let's go to the daily chart. Make this nice and clean. This is December 3rd. All right. Basically, I shared my truth on it, and then a lot of people reached out shortly after, and they started saying, why are you so bearish on this project? Now look at how much it's gone up since you've covered it. Yet, here we are on February 4th, and it's the same price as it was the day of that podcast. It's even actually went lower since, much lower. All right. Well, be aware that this is the Red Pill podcast. I'm not going to say the things you want me to say, right? I was sharing my analysis, and I'm aware that, yeah, I don't cover these things and I don't pay attention to them even until you guys vote on them. And then I cover it without bias. I just zoom out, I look at the chart, and I say, okay, this is how I feel. And it did have this energy of like, I released the episode, it went up a little bit, and then a lot of people started coming at me like I was wrong about something. First of all, it's not even what this is about. But let's just remind ourselves that being patient is the most important here, because we are now returned back to the same price as it was 2 podcasts ago in the time frames that I've covered it. After a rejection at the 6 cent level, which I told you all about to be aware of. This resistance is crucial. We had about 4 trading days of getting rejected, which then led to a almost 40% correction since. And we're still in the process of correcting. Pretty obvious. So this recent price action is not impressive. It's a pump and dump. And the reason I was initially bearish is simple. It's very simple. Zoom out and you'll see what I see. Is this an impressive chart? It's not to make fun of things. It's just, again, we have to be real here. We have to be real. This is a mess, this chart. And let's circle back to something that's very important, which is what I called this project venture capital. It's not that I'm bearish on it necessarily. It's just that this, Red Pill podcast is where we hand out the red pill. And that's going to make these podcasts controversial, sure. But isn't that what you want? Because if you wanted me to lie so you can stay comfortable, well, then you won't find that here. How could anyone honestly be bullish on a chart that looks like this? It's up 60% from the lowest it's been. It's up 60% from the lows. I mean, I just showed you earlier, Bitcoin is up 150% in that same amount of time. And Bitcoin has the highest market cap and the most chart history, and it's outperforming this beyond speculative altcoin. But the thoughts I shared in the past were never to steer you away from something that you considered for your own investment thesis. That's the beauty of what we're doing here. We're all individually developing our own investment thesis based on our own financials, our own goals, and our own personal research that we've done. So who knows, maybe one day I'd consider a venture capital position in Casper, but this chart hasn't convinced me yet. And we're not really going to get too much into the TA because we've effectively done that before. And this is not looking so great. I mean, again, just want people to get out of this whole gang up energy, this ganging up mentality. It's not helpful. It shows kind of that you're reliant on other people and also a lack of patience. And that's just not the way of the wolf. The same thing happened with Hex. And it's funny that the Hex community wants me to help them when they need the help and when they start getting impatient. We had this project go up a little bit recently, but all it's doing is catching up to it's a 98%, 99% down from all-time highs. How impressive is it for something that's 99% down from all-time highs to go up 100% over a couple weeks and then since have corrected 40%? It's just kind of the way that these altcoins move. People should be used to it. I mean, people have been saying lately that Hex is in an alt season. I'm like, what are we talking about here? What alt season? What alt season is 700 days or what are we on now? 900 days of a downtrend. Are we in an alt season? Again, this is not to be negative or to hurt people's feelings, but it's time to just get the tribalism out of here and start to develop stronger investment thesis that doesn't rely on this cultish vibe of being so overly focused on one particular coin, you know? I hope that this stuff helps people. I am here to be an asset to the Hex community. I want to help them. I even released a post quite recently trying to share a very mind-blowing code of this being a 77% correction from top to this correction. We have this being a 66% correction, and it could be incredible if this was to have now a 55% correction. 77, 66, 55, right there into 0055. I'm just trying to help these guys. But it's like this energy of tribalism is really toxic. And I say this now because I want people here to avoid that so that you make better decisions and you make clear, conscious choices throughout the entirety of this bull run. That will keep you ahead, that will keep you winning, and that'll keep you also just more calm. All right. So finishing off these final words, I appreciate every single one of you. I'm really looking forward to sharing tomorrow this new promo video for the upcoming Decoding Mastermind course. I hope you guys all enjoyed this Year of the Dragon Decoded. I believe it's packed with information that'll prepare us for future decodes. And in the background, I'm working on lots of stuff. I definitely want to get some more data compiled for what I'm thinking for XRP in the month of March and April, tied to this finality of the SEC case. And between now and then, I'm going to be focused on getting these Decoding Mastermind course videos loaded in and shared with you all. So I appreciate you. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your weekend. Much love.